Hey everybody. Today we're taking a look at the latest build of Guardians of Orion, or should I say, the Orion Project. Yes, that's right. In the grand tradition of Spiral Game Studios becoming Trek Industries and Orion Dino Beatdown turning into Orion Prelude, the latest game in this franchise has been rebranded from Guardians of Orion to the Orion Project. Now, unlike the previous cases of this happening, I do feel like this renaming is a little bit more justified than was perhaps the case with the previous game, in the sense that the scope of this game has really changed quite a bit since the last time I looked at it here on the channel. While the core fundamental gameplay appears that it will remain intact throughout the remainder of the development process, it seems as though there's going to be quite a bit added to this game in terms of features and scope, which is kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, depending on your point of view. Thinking about Guardians of Orion as it was described and pitched in its initial early access form, I think we were getting pretty close to a point where that game was going to be fairly complete. I could see a point in time in the not too distant future where all of the features would be there, all of the I's would be dotted, all the T's would be crossed, and we'd have a fairly finished, complete game experience to play and enjoy for however long that lasted. Now with the game metamorphosizing into the Orion Project, the goalpost has been moved quite considerably, and I suspect that it'll be quite some time, probably at least a year or more, before we see a finished final version of this game. Now, the good news about that is that there's still the same good, solid core gameplay that fans of Guardians of Orion will no doubt recognize in this footage here. However, the bad news about that is that I would expect to see a large number of growing pains and wrinkles and technical issues as this game transforms into the new scope that's been laid out for it. And I think this new strike map, which I'm showing here today, is a good example of that. This was introduced in the 1.4.4 patch, which just came out a couple of days ago. And while the map seems fun and interesting and a little bit different from what else is present in the game, there are some technical issues associated with it, such as these out-of-bounds errors that you're seeing where treasure chests and drop pods and other gameplay critical elements spawn outside of the designated play area. I also find myself kind of wondering why this particular play area is out of bounds when it seems as though the map just goes on and on and on off into the distance. I'm wondering if perhaps the boundaries from another level were used for this one, and that might be causing some of the issues here. But the word from the developers is that this is a known issue and will be fixed in the next major patch, which unfortunately I don't believe is scheduled to be released for a little while because it's intended to include a bunch of major new features. It kind of makes me wish that they would put the brakes on only just for a moment to address the issues with this new map so that people can enjoy it properly while they wait for the next big patch. But this may be a case where they've moved on in the development process to such a point where it would be too difficult to try to step back to this point and address the issues here. It's hard to say. Not having any direct insight into the inner workings of their development process, it's hard to say what the case is. But it was definitely a bit frustrating while capturing this footage when I got to a point where I got locked into an infinite loop of respawning because the drop pod that was supposed to be reintroducing me into the level kept coming in out of bounds, which didn't leave me enough time to get inbounds before my character was killed. And while that was kind of hilarious and amusing in a way, it does bring up a good issue and point with not just this game, but any game that's currently in early access. I feel like the line sometimes gets blurry in the world of early access because you have certain games like this one, which in a lot of ways is very polished and refined and playable, but it's important to keep in mind that when you buy into an early access game, what you're basically buying into is a work in progress. And even if certain aspects of the gameplay are very finished and polished and refined, that doesn't necessarily mean that the experience as a whole will always be that way, especially as new versions of the game are released throughout the development process. As I've said many times before, I'm a big fan of this game and a big fan of these developers, and I have no doubt that at some point in time the issues with this current version of the game will be addressed, and all sorts of fun, new, and interesting features will be added to it. But I do think this is a good cautionary reminder and a good opportunity to point out the importance of understanding what you're buying into as a consumer when you make a purchase on Steam Early Access. You are, for the most part, opting in to participate in the development process as a sort of beta tester and feedback provider for the opportunity to play the game early and in various stages of development. Not only to enjoy whatever aspects of the experience are enjoyable, but to provide feedback to the developer and help them shape the game into the best game that it can possibly be. Having said all that, I am still having more fun than a barrel full of monkeys with the Orion Project, and definitely look forward to seeing the next major update, which is slated to add several key new features, including a first-person mode, which I'm very much looking forward to. I think that's pretty much going to do it for me for this video. Hopefully you folks have enjoyed it. If you have, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more videos from me and more Orion Project coverage in the future, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time.
Love me some of that blue gold. Take off the Kruger! Harvest the oil buccaneer. Defend the harvester! Someone kill that thing! Defend the harvester! No, I'll never get my money back. That's foot right. I'll regret that one. Look at me go.